What a difference 4.5 months make. The government's faced opposition on several fronts since winning that landslide victory in July's general election. Now, for different groups of voters, there's been anger over the response to the summer riots, fury over the cutting of the winter fuel allowance for the vast majority of pensioners, unhappiness at the UK handing over control of the strategically important Chagos Islands, and, of course, the fallout from last month's budget is showing no signs of abating. In the last few weeks, the country's growth forecasts have been downgraded. Inflation has risen at the fastest rate for 2 years. And many of our largest retailers wrote to the Chancellor just last week warning that jobs would be lost as a result of the national insurance rises in that budget. Well, yesterday, Rachel Reeves addressed the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, the bosses, if you will, their annual conference, and pledged that the tax rises she announced less than a month ago would be a one-off for Labour's time in power.
We've now drawn a line under the fiction peddled by the previous government. We've put our public finances back on a firm footing, and we've now set the budgets for public services for the duration of this Parliament. Public services now need to live within their means, because I'm really clear I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. And that is why, at this budget, we did wipe the slate clean to put public finances and public services on a firm footing. And as a result, we won't have to do a budget like this ever again.
Yes, now I've read a couple of the comment pieces in this morning's newspaper. The speech was greeted with stony silence. I love that expression. Greeted with stony silence. Now, with all of the issues I just mentioned, it's perhaps no surprise the petition calling for another general election has reached, I believe it's as I speak, about 2.6 million signatures, and it's growing. Yesterday, the Prime Minister appeared on ITV's This Morning, where he spoke with presenters Kat Deely and Andy Peters, and at that point the petition was at just under about 2 million signatures, and Sir Keir Starmer gave this response.
I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So, look, what I focus is the decisions that I have to make every day.
But surely,
it's a bit like opposition.
Surely you want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now, which even saying it to the Prime Minister of the country I live in, that I pay tax in, to say your approval rate is lower than Nigel Farage, that's disappointing whoever I support.
The thing is, if you make your mind up, as I have done, that we're going to do the difficult things first, then I think it's inevitable that people do feel they're difficult decisions. I mean, I understand that.
Well, let's bring in the man who started this all off. Michael Westwood is the owner of the Wagon and Horses pub and the Ginger Beer Company in Tipton. You can get a pint there, by the way, I read, for £2.30. Mr. Westwood joins me now. Mr. Westwood, what on earth have you started? Good morning.
Morning, Nick. Thanks for having me on. What have I started? A little bit unsure, to be honest. But I'd like to think I'll give people the voice that they've to express what they feel at the moment. So
is it because you picked it up from the men and women in your pub? Where did you get the idea from? What did you tap into, this level of dissatisfaction?
Not just people within the pub industry, just small businesses in general, was extremely concerned about the way that the budget was rolled out, about the way it was lied to for them to get into power. And it was a bit of a collective, really, of opinions, thinking, do you know what? Why should we sit back and take it? Why should we sit back and be lied to? So let's see how we can change it, basically.
Are you really hopeful we'll have another general election, Michael? Let's be candid with each other.
You've got to be realistic. It's not going to happen. What man would sit there and debate his own job? I know I wouldn't like to do it myself. But at the same time, if you've lied to get into power, why shouldn't you be held responsible? Why shouldn't you be able to account?
For someone in the industry that you're in, the pub trade or hospitality more broadly, what does it mean, Michael?
Tough times ahead, to be truthful. The headlines coming out of the budget was, look what we've done for the pubs. We're taking a penny off a pint. Realistically, we're putting 25p on a pint next year because of the minimum wage increase, which I understand has to happen. People have got to be able to earn enough money to put food on the table. But at the same time, to then hammer small businesses as well on top of that, it's doomsday for us, really.
You don't have to answer this question, Michael, but can I ask who you voted for at the last general election?
I've said this previously. I voted Conservative because it was better the devil, until I didn't see the point in voting elsewhere until somebody come up with a better plan. I didn't think Labour was putting out a better plan or reform at the time, or anybody else for that matter. So I thought, you know what, let's stick with who we've got until somebody can come up with something better.
But hand on heart, with a pint of ginger in your other hand at the Wagon and Horses pub, can you honestly say the Conservatives did a good job, Michael? Come on.
No, they didn't do a good job. But at the same time, did they do a terrible job? No. Starmer's been in for 5 months and he's doing a terrible job. So it has got worse and it will get worse. That's it. I was reading headlines yesterday and some people trying to give me some negative feedback online saying you've only given 5 months. Well, the budget that's been put in place is going to have a knock-on effect to next year, and it's not a case of 5 months, it's a case of looking into next year and seeing how tough times are going to get.
What's it like with Sir Michael Caine sharing your petition?
I'd like to sit and have a pint with him, to be honest, if he's ever around. But but this is great. This is the whole point I wanted to do, is to create the debate. Obviously, it's not going to get into Parliament. They're not going to discuss it. They're going to run away from this. So, but this has created a storm where people are showing how dissatisfied they are with what's going on at the moment.
So, lastly, what you're a realistic bloke, I can tell that. You want this to be a warning shot, effectively a call to arms for the government to listen to what regular folk are saying, Michael.
Yeah, definitely. And longer term, if the system's broken, if Starmer sits there yesterday and says this is not how our country works, well, should we sit up and think, well, why doesn't it work? Why shouldn't we listen to the people? Maybe if the system's broken, we should sit and look at fixing it, maybe, rather than just burying head in the sand and carrying on with what's always been done.